It's a constant war zone. You practice with live targets.
The glitz and glamour of celebrity life is something we can easily get infatuated with. Just imagine relishing in the love of millions and having the world at your feet. But being famous doesn't make you immune to the menacing threat of vicious gangsters. Quite the contrary, actually. So when we talk about someone like 50 Cent getting threatened and even attacked by people from the other side of the law, you better believe that his superstar status is of no consequence to them.
I got shot right here, right? I was sitting in the car, the nigga was waving.
But 50 Cent is far from being the only rapper unlucky enough to brush shoulders with people from deep inside cartel organizations. In fact, he's just one of many, and he was extremely lucky to make it out alive, with others not being as fortunate. Join us as we unravel the gripping tales of rappers who messed with the wrong cartels. As we all know, 50 Cent took the music world by storm back in the early 2000s with his infectious beats and gritty lyrics. Chart-topping hits like In Da Club or Candy Shop have been party staples for people from all around the world. That's not to say that his climb to fame was a walk in the park, nor did it happen overnight. In fact, his journey to success was marked by one standout ordeal that nearly claimed his life. The day was May 24th, 2000s, when an unassuming 50 Cent was enjoying a day like any other at his grandmother's home in South Jamaica, Queens, New York. But things quickly went south when he was met with a barrage of bullets coming from outside the house that rapidly tore through his flesh, leaving him clinging to dear life.
Right behind me is my grandmother's home. I came out like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, May 24th. She was bent over, actually planting flowers in the garden, and I walked over here to sit in. The car pulled up. On the side of us, the guy got out the passenger seat of that car, came around behind it, and shot through the actual car.
His attackers managed to strike him 9 times and left him at fate's mercy. His situation was dire and his livelihood uncertain. Surgeons scrambled to try and save his life, yet no one was able to tell if he was even going to make it. One thing was clear though, this was an orchestrated assault designed to end him.
Well, you know it's a life-threatening situation. It's just not. I've seen people going to the hospital under circumstances that were way less intense and not come out.
From here on, things get murky because the brutality of the attack runs a lot deeper than just mere senseless violence. Enter Kenneth Supreme McGriff, the man who wanted 50 Cent gone and the brain behind the hit. You'd be wrong to think that he was just the typical gangbanger. You see, McGriff was a full-blown lord, and since he and 50 shared the same hometown, it's pretty safe to say that 50 knew exactly what he was capable of too. McGriff's influence over the streets of New York was vast and terrifying. His dealings resulted in a lot of suffering, particularly for the people living in Queens. From intimidation tactics to street shootouts, they've seen it all. Known as the Supreme Team, McGriff's gang's memberships ran in the hundreds, united by one common goal: the distribution of all throughout New York City. And whenever someone nosy would come along and mess with their plans, merciless retaliation was guaranteed. This is also what probably got 50 Cent into trouble with McGriff and his Supremes. Thankfully, 50 Cent narrowly escaped a tragic fate, and he was soon back out there, making music. Not only that, but coming out of this situation alive gave him a fresh new perspective on life.
Who has more cred than you, living after being shot 9 fucking times?
Ironically, getting shot and then making a remarkable comeback can prove to be extremely lucrative when you're a rapper. And why wouldn't it? After all, going through such an ordeal only to emerge victorious sounds a lot like putting your money where your mouth is. And obviously, 50 Cent knew this all too well. But while the attack definitely played a part in the consolidation of 50's tough guy reputation, that's not all there is to him. He definitely played his cards right and worked extremely hard to get to where he is. Today, it's hard to find one person who hasn't at the very least mumbled one of his many lyrics whenever he played on the radio. 50 Cent's career and legacy are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and his journey from the poverty-stricken streets of Queens all the way to the very top of his game serves as proof of what sheer passion and hard work can achieve. But despite his meteoric rise to fame, 50 Cent has never forgotten the events that changed his life and shaped him into what he is now, as seen in the many interviews where he spoke candidly about the impact the whole ordeal had on him.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much as people imagine it hurts because of your adrenaline and how the shock of what's actually going on, it hurts after.
Not only that, but in spite of relentless questions from both the press and the authorities, 50 Cent never turned his attackers in, nor did he even name them. You might be wondering why that is? Well, in true 50 Cent fashion, he doesn't adhere by the idea of being a snitch, not even when he's the one being victimized. Besides, he's more interested in thriving in the present than ruminating on the past.
I got tired of, in the recovery process, I got tired of being afraid. And then the only way that I could, to cover those emotions were to be a little more aggressive.
And insensitive.
And thrive, he did. In the years following the attack, 50 Cent achieved unparalleled success in the music industry, releasing hit after hit and earning critical acclaim for his raw, unapologetic lyricism. But his impact extended far beyond the realm of music. In addition to his musical pursuits, 50 Cent diversified his portfolio, venturing into film, television, and entrepreneurship. He launched successful ventures in clothing, beverage, and entertainment, solidifying his status as a savvy businessman and cultural icon. 50 Cent is now a bona fide mogul, a force to be reckoned with. In the face of unimaginable hardship, 50 Cent emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. His story serves as a reminder that no obstacle is insurmountable and no dream is too big to achieve. As long as there is hope in the human heart, there will always be a path forward, illuminated by the unwavering light of resilience and perseverance. We can't move on to our next case without taking note of one depressing fact. In recent years, Mexico has seen the rise of an unexpected music genre, dubbed narco rap. Its fans and artists alike go out of their way to glorify the very people that have inflicted so much pain and suffering upon them.
Cumple un papel muy específico, que es el hecho de hablar por encargo de organizaciones criminales sobre supuestos héroes o endiosar o generar una narrativa hasta cierto punto como mitológica, o si hicieron una cosa que es importante para ellos, dejan un testimonio de eso y entonces buscan un rapero para que lo haga.
Although narco rappers do get paid to name drop violent cartel leaders in their songs, that's not to say that they're granted any form of protection against anyone who might have a problem with it. This is the lesson that a Mexican rapper named Peso Pluma had to learn the hard way. On September 10th, 2023, the stage was set for him to perform at a major music festival in Mexico City, a crowd of some 100,000 enthusiastic fans awaiting his arrival. But as Peso Pluma stepped into the spotlight, things quickly took a terrifying turn. His decision to mention El Chapo on stage would prove life-changing.
The biggest right now, Peso Pluma, the biggest narco corrido singer, is dedicated several songs to the Chapitos. They like to be in the limelight. They like to be narcos.
But who is Peso Pluma exactly? And why is he in so much danger for just a small lyric? Boosted by legions of fans on TikTok, Peso Pluma has skyrocketed to fame, becoming one of the most listened to artists on Spotify, where he boasts more than 50 million listeners per month. He sings about diamond-encrusted pistols, smuggled shipments of dargs, and unaliving his enemies. All of this would have been fine had it not been for this one single addition to his lyrical library. For those of you who don't know Spanish, the lyrics go as follow.
And to work with, Don Ivan, I am from the people of Chapo Guzman. Don't move me, because I might get angry. And I introduce myself to you. I am El Gavilan.
It was precisely this small mention of the infamous Sinaloa cartel leader that ushered Peso Pluma directly into an extremely dangerous situation where he could potentially lose his life. You see, this inconspicuous line was enough to catch the attention of another local cartel called Jalisco New Generation. Much like El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel, Jalisco New Generation, or CJNG for short, is a brutal cartel that doesn't shy away from extreme acts of violence when the opportunity arises. To them, artistic acts such as Peso Pluma's Ode to El Chapo are considered disrespectful and insulting, a grave sin on Pluma's part that warrants every bit of their retaliation. Here's where things get tricky, because you can't exactly say that Peso wasn't given any fair warning ahead of that fateful music festival concert. In fact, banners posted around the city of Tijuana that read, "Cancel your upcoming concert or face the consequences," and signed by the CJNG were exactly that. Now, we're not sure what, or better yet, who persuaded Peso Pluma to go ahead and say his line despite the obvious threat of violence, but he made it abundantly clear on his several social media platforms that the whole thing will go on as planned, taking advantage of this opportunity to shine a light on the harsh realities of life in the spotlight. This brave decision, although outright dangerous, was praised by his community of devoted fans. But that's not to say that Peso Pluma didn't know what he was getting himself into in the first place. Of course, anyone could say that it's just music, but in Mexico, the symbiosis between organized crime and music is palpable, and songs get written specifically for the cartels all the time. Naturally, songs like Peso Pluma's Siempre Pendientes are going to rub rival cartels the wrong way. And since the only way cartels can stay in power is to maintain their uncompromising, merciless image intact, you can bet that there will be some insane consequences for the artists who dare diss them in such a public manner. So let's just say that there's no reason to suspect that, in putting that song out, Peso Pluma knew nothing about what such a gesture might entail. And to make matters worse, Peso Pluma is originally from Jalisco, Mexico, also known as the CJNG's headquarters. So you can imagine how his words of praise towards a completely different cartel than the one that runs his hometown can add on top of the already pre-existing sentiment.
This is modern warfare. We use war technologies. We use drones. Here, everybody is adequately trained to use them to the maximum so that they can hear that thunder. However, they want to paint us as the worst of the bad guys. We won't harm anyone except for those that deserve it. If you deserve it, you better hide, because we will come with all we got.
So, as whispers of his concert spread through the city of Tijuana, the CJNG knew that they had to send a clear message that this would not be tolerated, and thus, posters upon posters of warnings and threats emerged. Fortunately, however, as the date of his concert approached, Peso Pluma ultimately made the decision to cancel his appearance out of fear for his safety.
A popular Mexican singer postponing several shows because of death threats, and one of those concerts to cancel your concerts that are, sold out in some places. You're taking it seriously for sure.
It's pretty safe to say that this was a great decision, since the CJNG cartel was definitely not bluffing when they said that. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. After all, they've wreaked havoc across the region in the past. So what was stopping them for carrying out their senseless brutality this time? And while Peso Pluma is safe and sound right now, thanks to his and his team's wise decision to play it safe and call the concert off, it's important to view this close call as a strong cautionary reminder of the dangers that people in the public eye must face in the unforgiving landscape of Mexico's criminal underworld. A world where artistic expression is never unconditional, and danger looms beneath the surface at all times. As we move on to the next case, it's important that we warn you that not everybody on this list has been lucky enough to live to tell the tale of just how brutal the drug cartels can really be. Our next case is a stark reminder that when it comes to coming face to face with these gangs, your life becomes a game of chance, and there's no telling where things are going to go from there. Now let's picture this. In a cold and empty lot somewhere in Guadalajara, Mexico, a lifeless body is discovered. It's the body of a 40-year-old man, and one thing is clear: he's been brutally tortured and then disposed of by cartel affiliates. To his chest lies a terrifying message that was pinned into his flesh with the help of a screwdriver. The note was claiming that the man had been killed because of his connection to an enemy of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the same cartel that also threatened the livelihood of our previous subject, Peso Pluma. The body belongs to Mr. Yosi Lot, a 42-year-old Mexican rapper beloved by many. He was a pioneer of a rap subgenre known as rap malandro, or thug rap, as most people would call it, a style of hip-hop that can be regarded as the soundtrack of the Mexican drug war. To give you an idea, some of the subjects that he would rap about included drug abuse and massacres, drawing huge inspiration from the evil inflicted upon his people by the Mexican drug cartels.
kicking and screaming. This teenager with a gunshot wound was rescued after being found dangling from a rope on a busy highway.
And when faced with the sheer brutality of these organizations, it's easy to predict that people living in Guadalajara would take to music and make it their preferred medium of expression when dealing with the harsh realities of everyday life in one of the most dangerous cities in Mexico.
There's no security here, no peace, no tranquility. There's only fear, crying and fear, extortion and intimidation.
But thug rap differs greatly from its narco rap counterpart in that it neither praises nor criticizes the perpetrators of these vicious crimes. They're more interested in the culture around it and exploring the powerful collective identity that it implies. And since the CJNG cartel came to power, everything intensified tenfold. More and more artists joined this cultural movement, making their own contributions to the endless catalog of songs about the struggle of living under the cartel's reign of terror. And at the forefront of the movement lies Mr. Yosi Lot, who unfortunately paid the ultimate price for getting caught up in the complex web of shady dealings. He was one of the highest profile rappers to perish at the hands of the CJNG. He was last seen at a local market on April 17, 2018 before he vanished, never to be seen alive again. Shockingly, his butchered body later turned up with a clear message, literally stapled to his chest. "This is going to happen to all those who keep supporting Cholo," the note read. But who is this Cholo? And did Yosi have anything to do with him? Let's explore this question for a bit. You see, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel wasn't the only cartel with claims to the area, and their counterpart was just as ruthless. Enter the Nueva Plaza Cartel, a criminal organization sharing the territory of Jalisco. Initially part of the CJNG, the Nueva Plaza Cartel fractured itself away from its mother cartel in 2018 and became a menacing figure in its own right.
You had a shootout between federal police and local police, and basically both of them were taking care of their own cartel guys.
And behind the wheel of this cartel, a man named Enrique Sanchez Martinez, better known as El Cholo. Being a new cartel sure has its challenges, so it was imperative that El Cholo and his gang retain the upper hand at all times. This meant that they had to make it clear from the get-go that a zero-tolerance policy against their rivals was in full place. And that's exactly what they did. They swiftly eliminated their enemies left and right, with little concern regarding the suffering that they were inflicting. Nueva Plaza quickly became one of the scariest cartels in the broader region. Besides, El Cholo, in particular, had quite the reputation of being extremely volatile and hungry for violence. He even managed to dispose of the CJNG's very leader. So now that we know who we're dealing with, can we say for sure that Yosi Lot played any part in this bitter war between savages? Well, no one's actually sure. And, either way, it doesn't make the slightest of difference to the cartels. After all, when it comes to organized crime, style oftentimes wins over substance, meaning that Yosi's tragic demise was less important than the message. That was so brutally etched into his chest, a clear signal for anyone thinking of doing the right thing to bow their heads instead, and never mess with Mexico's most brutal cartels. Sadly, Yosi will never see the light at the end of this horrific tunnel, but we certainly can. The movement he helped pioneer will forever serve as a solace for the people in his community who can oftentimes feel down and discouraged in their everyday lives. While being on the cartel's radar for assumed betrayal is frightening enough, what happens when you blatantly turn against them? Well, another figure in the rap scene did precisely that, and found himself deeply tangled in the crosshairs of some of the most brutal Mexican drug cartels by doing the one thing that they would not tolerate, being a snitch. Betrayal is probably the worst thing you can do when you have criminal organizations breathing down your neck, especially when the people you confide in are law enforcement officers.
These individuals, they stab you in front of everybody. Everybody. And if anybody gets in the way, they're gonna get stabbed too.
So, when Mexican rapper Christian Omar Palma Gutierrez, better known as QBA, Cuba, decided to take the dangerous route of exchanging precious information about the cartel with the authorities, his connections to the ruthless El Meno, CJNG's very leader, became apparent, and his demise from there on was just a matter of time. People outside of Mexico might not know who he is, but let's just say that QBA is the farthest thing from being the victim in all of this. Once an up-and-coming rapper, celebrated for his matter-of-fact, sharper-than-a-blade lyrical style. His entire public persona crumbled completely in the span of just a few weeks. So what happened around that time frame that would render him in a very different position than that of a promising new artist? It all started when he was arrested and charged with the kidnapping and subsequent disposal of 3 innocent film students.
Gutierrez told Mexican prosecutors that he had dissolved their bodies using acid after they were kidnapped and murdered.
You heard that right. QBA was, in fact, working hand-in-hand with the ruthless CJNG cartel and doing their dirty bidding. But why would a young man with so much decide to march towards certain darkness? Well, things are more complicated than they seem. Despite the outward displays of success, QBA was actually facing some very stressful times from a financial standpoint. It turns out that he signed a bad deal with a label who didn't value him all that much, leaving him with a weekly wage that did little to satisfy any decent lifestyle, much less the life that he desired. This is where the cartel comes in and offers QBA a bigger sum of money, consisting of just $150 per week in return for his services. And since we're talking about a drug cartel, best be sure that these services are anything but ordinary. He was tasked with carrying out several slayings on behalf of the organization, and QBA agreed, and he didn't seem to mind his new job all that much, as evidenced by the fact that he fully complied with the cartel's brutal demands. But then, the unthinkable happened. 3 innocent film students were kidnapped after they had left a ranch where they were filming a school project. The ranch was being watched by cartel members, waiting for a rival gang leader when they apparently mistook the students for members of that gang. They then endured relentless torture that lasted for hours on end, until, eventually, the gang realized that they had made a mistake. Shockingly, the gang members diverged from their usual tactics and, instead of dumping them back on the streets, decided to end their lives instead. This is where QBA comes in. He was tasked with disposing of their bodies by dissolving them in sulfuric acid, a powerful agent capable of destroying flesh and bone completely in the span of just a few short hours. The crime shook the entirety of Mexico, and countless fellow students took to the streets in protest of the lack of mobilization on the authorities' part. A decision as heartless and brutal rendered QBA past the point of no return. There was nothing he could do to take back his involvement in the worst crimes imaginable. But there was one thing that he could do right, and that is cooperating with the authorities and hopefully put a stop to the madness that has been suffocating the region for so long.
On Thursday, students in Guadalajara, Jalisco protested in the streets in memory of the 3 film students.
He didn't have much of a choice either, since law enforcement was desperate to stop the wave of outrage that engulfed the city by bringing the men responsible to justice. Soon enough, QBA was apprehended and taken for confession. Once in custody, QBA was actually able to breathe a sigh of relief as he laid bare the inner workings of the CJNG's meth production, shedding light on everything from chemical smuggling to clandestine lab operations. He was clearly motivated by financial gain while committing unspeakable atrocities, which means that snitching on his former bosses wasn't that much of an issue for him, since he wasn't bound by loyalty, like many other cartel members sadly are. But just because he was now in custody doesn't mean that he was safe from harm. QBA's career was now over, and he was facing upwards of 140 years behind bars. Remember when we said that betrayal is a cardinal sin as far as the cartels are concerned? When it comes to revenge, no stone will ever be left unturned, not even in jail. Some people even seem to think that QBA deserves redemption for offering such a detailed statement that will surely help law enforcement navigate the tricky web of cartel dealings from here on now. Messages like "Free QBA" have emerged from supporters in solidarity with his cause. And while QBA is serving his sentence behind bars, one can't help but wonder, is this it? Is he destined to spend the remainder of his life in prison, ruminating on the many things he could have done to prevent his life from going down the drain? Or is something far more sinister looming just around the corner? Perhaps cartel retaliation for his rattling? Only time will tell. Having to deal with lawless cartels is enough to scare just about anyone. And this becomes even more apparent when you're a celebrity. Think about it. Having the world's eyes focusing on you and everything that you do means that you're left in a more vulnerable position than your average person. How do you think these rappers could have defended themselves more efficiently? Is bowing down your head in the face of danger ever efficient? Feel free to let us know what you think in the comments below. If you've enjoyed our video, then make sure to give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to our channel if you want to watch more videos like this. Until next time, stay safe.